Hi, this is Robert with CRUZBIKE, and today we're going to be building a CRUZBIKE S40 Complete. The first step is removing all the loose items from the box, the seat and seat cushion, parts box, any accessories included in this particular packaging you may have ordered. And once all that is out, the bike will simply lift free of the box. We can now start removing the zip ties holding the wheels to the frame and start removing the protective packaging. Once all the packaging is removed from the frame, unload the parts box, which includes pedals, mirror, the seat extension, and all the remaining hardware needed to complete assembly. In the box you will also find the rear wheel skewer, the front wheel skewer, of which we will remove the springs later, and also the hardware included to attach the seat to the frame. You will also find the pivot clamp bolt and washers, which we will use to attach the front end to the pivot clamp at the fork. Also in the box will be a pulley wheel. This is in case you want to add a front derailleur and shifter to the front end at a later date. You will also find flathead washers and screws for the seat. Using a number 4 Allen, we are going to loosen the chainstay screws slightly to allow for the front end to move a little bit. This will make assembly much easier. Then we will use a number 5 Allen to loosen the boom clamp, enough so that we can turn and straighten the handlebars and attach the front end to the fork. You will want to take note of the washers on the pivot clamp bolt. There should be 2 on the sleeve side and 1 on the bolt side. Now we will rotate the front end around. We have everything slightly loose so it moves easily. We will set the chainstays over the forks. If you find that the front end moves much too easily, you can slightly tighten the boom clamp bolt so you can still turn the tubes, but they will not necessarily slide in and out easily. We now want to align the pivot clamp bolt with the pivot clamp. The 2 cables are routed on the outside. The middle shifter cable runs on the inside of the pivot clamp. We will then slide our pivot clamp bolt in, make sure there's 2 washers on the sleeve side. And on the bolt side, we will have 1 washer, and we will thread the bolt in and tighten with 2 5mm Allen wrenches. It's important here to not over tighten. We want to be able to make a little bit of adjustability, but when riding you want to make sure this connection is secure. The headrest clamp, the Perez clamp, is installed at the factory. It pulls up onto the headrest tubes, allowing it to slide in and out when it's loose and keeps them secure when it's tightened. It's loosened with a 3mm Allen, and what you want to do here is back these screws out until the clamp rests all the way flush to the bottom of the frame. The screws are long enough that you will not be able to fully release the screws and lose the clamp inside the frame unless you completely back the screws out. Once the clamp is loose and resting at the bottom of the frame, The headrest tube should slide easily past the clamp and have plenty of room for adjustment for riders of varying heights. Right now we're going to pick a middle position and we're going to tighten the clamp. It's very important to not over tighten this connection. It does not need to be super tight, just snug enough to keep the tubes from sliding in and out. Next, we want to locate our flathead washers and panhead screws to attach the seat extension to the main portion of the seat. We'll insert our screws and washers here. And then using a number 3 Allen, we will want to insert the screws through the front holes of the seat. It might be necessary to thread these in, and then we'll be able to install the seat to the frame. Once the extension is attached, we are going to take the seat and we will insert those 2 bolts through the mount holes on the front of the frame. And then we will take 2 nylock nuts and we're going to just temporarily insert them. We're not going to tighten them all the way at this time, just get a handful of threads in. Then we're going to put pressure on the seat and line up the back bolts. You might have to put some downward pressure on the front of the seat as you work the seat onto the frame. And once those bolts are in, we're going to put our nylock nuts on the back side. And one at a time, we're going to go and tighten all of these nylock nuts and secure the seat. For the front bolts, we're going to use our 5mm driver and a 3mm Allen to tighten the bolts. It's very important not to over tighten these bolts. As a general rule, if you tighten the bolt till it is flush with the end of the screw, you'll notice there's no movement in the seat at this point. Everything is nice and secure. Now we will tighten our top bolts. Here we want to snug these bolts down until we do not feel any movement when we push on the seat back. Tighten them a little bit and then push on the seat back and notice if you see any movement in the bolts. When you put pressure on the seat, if there is still some movement and play, tighten them a little bit more until all the play is removed, and that is as tight as these bolts need to be. Now, as you notice, with our Perez clamp loosened, which there are holes in the seat to access those bolts, we can insert our headrest into the frame, make our adjustment, and tighten the Perez clamp just enough to prevent the headrest from moving. On the S40, the headrest is optional. You can certainly ride this cruise bike without a headrest, or use the headrest if you wish, or you want to mount cages to the back of the headrest using our awesome cage mount accessory. Our next step is to install our pedals. Your CRUZBIKE S40 comes with these awesome VP platform pedals. You will note on the inside mold of each pedal is a right or a left to indicate which side of the cranks the pedals go on. The right side being the drive side where the chainring is, and the left being the non-drive side. The SRAM cranks included on the S40 have a set of pedal washers, which should be attached to the crank arm. We will want to take those pedal washers and put them on each pedal before we tighten the pedals down. Using our J-Cool Allen wrench, we will tighten the pedal onto each crank and make sure it is nice and secure. The drive wheel on the CRUZBIKE S40 uses a freehub system that can easily come off if the axle is loose. If you notice that your freehub is loose off of the wheel, it is very easy to put it back on. This is also handy if you need to remove your cassette for cleaning. The freehub body can come off, which will also come off with the axle. If you notice that the cassette is not completely installed into the hub, simply remove the axle and now reinsert the axle into the hub, except push it all the way through until it is all the way inside the hub. Make sure you don't touch or get grease on the rotor with your bare hands. And now the freehub can simply be inserted at a slight angle and clipped right into the hub. Push the axle back through into the freehub body and then reinsert the end cap. Once everything is nice and secure there, we are going to install our axle, the forks, and everything tightened together once the wheel is in the bike will prevent this from coming apart. It is simply a design of the hub. Some hubs do this and some do not. We will now insert our front wheel into our frame. We're going to very carefully pivot the frame upwards and roll the wheel right into the fork, making sure we align our rotor with the calipers here. And then we will very carefully spread the forks and lower the frame right down onto the wheel. The derailleur hanger should be pre-installed onto the derailleur. You will notice that it has a concave side that faces the fork and a notch that fits right into a notch on the chainstay. We're going to simply spread the fork and chainstay a little bit and insert the derailleur hanger into the frame. Once we have the derailleur inserted, we can fully insert the skewer all the way through to the other side, insert the nut, and tighten the front skewer. To complete assembly, we're going to use our rack stand here. This is highly suggested if you don't have someone who can hold the bike. To mobilize the front wheel, to insert the rear wheel, we're going to use our rear skewer. Here on the rear, we can use the springs. The springs are only there to center the skewer on the dropouts. We're going to insert the skewer into the hub with the handle side on the rotor side of the hub, and then using the nut, just go a few threads in, and then we will install the rear wheel onto the frame, being careful to align our rotor between the brake pads as we lower the frame onto the rear axle. The apex derailleur comes with a cage lock, so if you pull the cage forward, press the lock button and lower the cage onto the stop, it will stay open. This will make the chain installation much easier. We'll locate our quick links here along with our chain. And now we will drape our chain over the chain ring, route the chain over the top of the cassette. Then we will route the chain over the first jockey wheel. We want to make sure we avoid the small metal cage guide there. Under the cage guide and then around and through the back jockey wheel. And then use our quick links to complete the chain assembly. You may be able to pull the quick link tight. However, if it does not seat all the way, another easy way to set the quick link is to simply rotate the chain very carefully around to the drive side of the bike so that the quick link is on top. Reinstall the chain onto the chain ring and then put light pressure on the pedal and pop the quick link into place. To install the stock pad, we will install the appropriate lengths of Velcro to the bottom of the seat pad and install the seat pad onto the seat. An easy way to make sure the Velcro is aligned is to just undo a small portion of the backing at first and initially stick the seat pad to the seat and then very carefully remove the seat pad from the Velcro and then finish removing the backing as shown in the video. This will ensure that your Velcro strips are perfectly aligned with the seat and lay nice and flat on the carbon fiber. Once your seat pad is installed, you are ready for your adjustments and ready to ride.